terrifying those little kids.
Yeah, all these directors, they feel like the kids in Spirit of the Beehive, like they saw the monster movies as kids and they just never got over them.
Yeah.
They're like, I want to make movies where fucked up stuff happens.
That's what they did.
Because those movies scared the hell out of me when I was a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of this episode, we're going to be talking about some more albums that you recommended, Zach, that people should check out from this year, 1977. Got some interesting ones to talk about.
Always.
But first, it's going to be Suspiria.
Witches.
I love that they say that in the like background. Witches. It's fun, you know. It's very over the top, and you gotta appreciate it for just going there. You know, these Europeans, they love to just go crazy with these horror movies.
They really do.
And you might want to go to the film experts for your opinions about crazy European horror movies, giallo films. But some like it unauthorized. And I'm Jay Brooks Young.
And I'm Zach Domes.
And we enter 1977 through a spooky doorway with this Dario Argento film, Suspiria.
Suspiria. Yeah, this was your first time watching, and I had a feeling you'd get a kick out of this one. What was your overall take?
I did get a kick out of it. I don't know. I guess it was a little underwhelmed. Once you've been introduced to this genre, to Argento or similar filmmakers like Mario Bava, I feel like you know what to expect when you go into these films. So I was curious why this one rose to be on the 2022 Sight and Sound list over other giallo films. And it was gorgeous, you know. The color obviously stands out. It's a pretty remarkable production on a whole with the way that they designed these sets and stuff and did all the crazy colored lighting. But I don't know that it's like all that unique among the handful of giallo films that I've seen. I haven't delved into the genre a lot. I feel like this is one of those genres of kind of cult film that if you come to it at an earlier age, if it's something you're discovering as like an alternative cinema to what you might see as a kid or see at a movie theater, like then it's going to have a special place. You're going to connect to it in a different way. And I don't know, with the kind of project that we do of trying to put these films in context historically, I think it's fun to see what is happening in this horror lane throughout the 60s and 70s. But I don't know, they're not like my favorite type of film, I guess.
Yeah, you're looking for those. You know, what was the last movie we talked about that you were blown away by? Just to have some perspective on that. You know, get a sense of what your taste is, what you're looking for, you know?
Sure. I mean, we just talked about The Ascent, which when I, first saw that in the theater was truly kind of a transcendent experience.
Mm-hmm.
I like a good slow cinema exploration of the soul. But if it's something in a more genre-y space, Funeral Parade of Roses or Pink Flamingos, like that stuff really knocked my socks off. Aguirre, Wrath of God. There's something about this. Like, I love how it looks. I think he's really great visually, Argento, but there's something really contained about this film, and there's something where, I don't know, the style sometimes throws me off just on like a technical level, like they're using these crazy anamorphic lenses and stuff, and I don't love the effect that those have on the image. It just kind of feels like it looks wrong, There can be something weird with the performances and the dubbed over dialogue. I don't know. It's kind of hard to pinpoint why it didn't just like crackle for me the way some of these other genre films will. What was it like for you revisiting this one?
Yeah, I kind of know what you mean based on my first experience. Like, I remember a friend of mine queued it up. This maybe was 6 years ago or something. And I didn't know what we were getting into. I knew it was going to be like a fun, interesting old horror film. And but as it played, it was kind of one of those experiences where, and this is for me how it is with horror, like I get scared by it, of course, and it's the spectacle of being frightened and all that. And with an older horror, obviously it's not going to be like, terrifying in the same way like a modern horror can be because of the effects and stuff. And you might get grossed out by certain scenes, but you're ultimately going to notice the set design and the production and all that stuff with age. So I was like, it's pretty good and it's scary. And the mystery to me, whenever something's kind of mysterious, but doesn't really go anywhere, and you're still kind of left wondering, like, what the hell was that? Like, for me, I love Lynch. Love the guy. But occasionally there are episodes of Twin Peaks or certain things he does where I'm kind of like, I just left a little bit like, what was that about? What was that for? I don't hate it. I'm just a little bit like, Whereas sometimes I'm like, wow, that was incredible. With the second watch, though, I was like more intrigued, to be honest. And I don't know exactly why, but I had a much better second viewing. I felt like I was really enjoying the colors, the light design. I was enjoying the mystery of it and the intrigue of it all. And I ended up kind of just sort of loving it more in a way. I wasn't looking, I had already seen it, so I knew that like she was going to end up getting into that room and spoiler alert, stabbing the kind of ghostly figure instead of the sort of zombie-ified version of her friend. Still, but I don't know. I was like, I enjoyed the experience of the whole thing rather than like caring about the mystery or like caring about anything else. I just loved the production and everything about it. So the music's wonderful. About that last scene too, by the way, one thing I noticed that I also appreciated was, I'm going to dive into the end here already, but it's just one of those things that I noticed that I thought was a nice touch. Like, so throughout most of the film, it's very pieced together where you'll be like cutting to various scenes that you're not sure how much time has gone by and how long they've been there. And it's all very disorienting. And, people like Buñuel have been doing that for a while. But once we get to the end scene, as she does that, she finds her way to that room, kills that witch woman, and then all the other nuns, or the other sisters, or they're not sisters, they're dance instructors, they all die. And a typical movie, a lot of times even in a modern day movie, you would cut to some scene where maybe she like sees the house starting to fall down and then cut to her just like leaving the building. But we actually we follow her through every room she went through to get to that final room, which I felt like it's a small touch, and I don't know exactly why it works, but I appreciated following her back out through the collapsing building. So she walked through this like ornate, beautiful, luscious kind of designed rooms. And then after she kills that witch, she walks back through them, only this time getting destroyed and collapsing. Finally, she walks out of that building, and then we're done. And I don't know, I appreciated that finality being very grounded in that way of like, we're watching her and we're with her through all of that, having the whole time before been like disoriented by what is even going on. So it shouldn't work. I don't typically like movies like this. I'm not one that's like ever been like, look at that set design. Isn't that just amazing? Look at the lighting and stuff. But I felt like they had a lot of fun with this one, and you can tell, and I just, I soaked it in.
Yeah. I don't want to use the word logic because I don't know that's right. But there is something here where it feels like it exists in a space. And maybe that's just that all of this has to be done kind of practically. But then even the special effects kind of work for what the film's trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jasper Sharp, he's someone who voted in the Sight and Sound in 2022. He chose Suspiria, and he also chose Imitation of Life and Black Narcissus. Both those movies have like major set design and lighting and everything as a main component. So you could see that that's something that he looks for. But he commented that where any shortcomings in the performances or the dialogue or the plotting are, they can be forgiven because of the overall dream logic. And to some degree, I agree with that. And I hate to use the Lynch comparison again, but that is what comes to my mind. Is there's times where Lynch it almost seems like he's having the actors be intentionally not good because there's this weird offsetting vibe that creates. It's not normal. Something's wrong. Something's off. And I don't know another way to say it other than like a second viewing is better. And I don't have any idea really why, other than what I'm trying to describe.
Yeah. It might have been better to see it like in a theater.
Yeah.
To have that totally enclosed experience. I got to see Argento's first film, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, in the theater. I definitely had a better experience with that. I feel like I could maybe point to that being less, set bound or stage bound. But I don't know. It might have just been that getting to see that in the theater, made that more of a immersive experience.
Yeah, I did. I texted you. I said I really wish that you could see this on a big screen, because I think every movie should be seen on a big screen, obviously, but this is one of those that I feel like really does deserve to be experienced that way, to get the really full effect,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he launches you right away. He starts off with an American. Is that what the main character is? And she's
from New York,
traveling to this dance program to learn how to dance. And then it's a rainy day when she arrives. She can't get in. And this girl comes out. She seems like frantic, talking nonsense pretty much, and kind of running through the forest. And, immediately you're already like, with any horror like this, you're immediately like, why would you, obviously you wouldn't, if you encountered that, you wouldn't be like, oh, that was weird. Oh, well, you would immediately tell somebody about it. You'd immediately be freaked out and maybe seeing if you can get a flight out of there as soon as you could, right? Like, that doesn't seem right. So you're obviously not looking at realism here. You're looking at like kind of a storybook, almost like a frightening storybook of some kind to come to life. And she goes about her program basically and gets introduced to it. And all of the dance instructors seem kind of strange.
Yeah, it's fun because you get introduced to her classmates, and there's already this weird climate of competitiveness and like catty back and forth between these women that's already kind of like throwing things off. You know, it raises questions of like, why is everything so unsettling? What was the deal with the woman running off into the woods at the beginning? Like, you're not sure if it's coming from the students, if it's coming from the teachers, if it's coming from the like manservant, the like medieval style, like ugly manservant who doesn't speak.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of like Young Frankenstein or something. The guy in that, yeah.
It sets it up where this whole place feels upside down, and you also very quickly get the scene of that woman that ran off and her friend getting attacked and killed in this like hotel, which is a really crazy set piece. She crashes through the stained glass window and gets hung by a wire, and you're wondering who's the crazy hairy armed, attacker. What's going on here?
Yeah, she gets stabbed.
You see the heart.
And then you see the heart, and then you see the heart get stabbed. Yeah. In vivid red. And this is it's so funny that you have obviously commented every single time you watch a movie like this from the 70s, and the blood, you see the blood. There's always somebody that goes, why is it so fake looking, But here's an example. This is a great movie where that doesn't matter because all the colors are super vivid. So the bright red almost adds to the effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're looking at the world through a kind of hyper realized image because everything's so saturated.
Yeah. It's really one of those films that just I let it, wash over me.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what to say necessarily from scene to scene.
You're thrusted pretty quickly into that haunting vibe where there's this girl, she's running, and you don't know what she's running from. It's kind of weird. And then she gets brutally murdered. And it's like, it's very jarring. It's very overwhelming. And then, you're introduced to these characters and everything kind of ticks along. I know horror movies do that occasionally. I found it to be very interesting with this case, that it's like initial craziness, and then for a while, not that much. Just a lot of kind of meeting the people. She becomes disoriented at one point when she sees that glass beam of light kind of reflect into her eyes. So it's disorientation for a while after that initial murder. And a couple little jump scares, but it's nothing much. And you really don't get to anything too crazy again until really towards the end, when her friend, or I guess you get to when that blind guy's walking with his dog. That's kind of the next brutal thing.
Yeah, no, but it's all smaller moments before that, and it's stuff where you can kind of reasonably doubt, is this kind of in her head, or is this stuff that's actually being done? We kind of assume, someone's doing something. You have the soundtrack, they literally say witches, but you could imagine that it's in her head that she is really anxious about going to this school and having to work really hard on the dancing, and the pressure is making her feel like strange about all these things happening. But then it kind of, that reality comes crashing back in when the woman with the scary boy in his outfit seem to possess the dog, and the dog attacks the boy, and why did they even do this? I don't know. But they basically fire that blind pianist, and then his dog attacks him in the middle of this square in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Why do they do that scene? Is that your question?
Yeah, why possess the dog or whatever? Why do they want to get rid of this guy now?
I mean, I suppose I would say I'm not sure why get rid of that guy. I mean, he could just be a stand-in for the dog transformation, and I would say that the dog transformation is to terrify you. Obviously, like here's a creature that we have a strong relationship with, and they're like our best friends, right? And so for that thing to turn is it's really a loss of innocence, and it's terrifying just in the thought of it. But then on the other hand, these witches have the capability to do that. They can turn something good and seemingly purely good. You know, dogs are an example of just like total loving care for their owners. And to turn that thing into a vicious thing is like quite an evil power. And I mean, that's representative of could be representative of a lot of things. Turning good things evil.
Yeah. This seems to be how they derive their power, is through evil acts, I guess so.
Yeah.
It was always inevitable that they were going to eventually take advantage of this disabled man, and the most evil thing would be to turn his seeing eye dog against him.
Yeah. I remembered that scene specifically because the friends I watched with, they had a German Shepherd. And I think it's a German Shepherd in the film. So we were like, oh no, no. Traumatizing a little bit.
It was a little funny though. And that's where, sometimes these effects cross the line into funny, because you have like this obviously fake puppet dog, like, on his neck. And then it cuts to the dog just like chewing at some random piece of meat.
Yeah. No, I know. That's what I mean by that first watch. I was like, I think in a first watch of a horror movie from that era, I think maybe this is what I used to do more so, is I would be looking for a kind of sense of realism. And if the director had a sense of not overdoing it where it wouldn't work years down the line. So it's like, you have this idea for a scene, and then you're like, okay, what if we had the dog attack the guy? And then you're there on set, and you're like, well, we can't have the actual dog bite him, so let's have a puppet dog bite him. Well, you got to cut to that in only a matter of seconds. You give it like 1 or 2 seconds. You kind of see the dog, and you get the idea, and then you cut away again because you don't want to hold it long enough there to, make it feel unrealistic. And you got to wonder, like, was that necessary? Like, would there have been a creative way to avoid needing to do that just so it could age better? Because you got to know that stuff's going to get better over time at that point.
Yeah. I don't think there's like a right answer. It feels like, there are as many examples where it's fake, but you don't care.
Yeah, like The Thing. Something like The Thing.
Yeah.
Or you just watched The Exorcist. How did you feel? How did you feel with certain scenes in that movie?
There are funny ones like projectile vomiting slime.
Yeah,
that sort of thing. I think just as goofy now.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, it definitely comes together sometimes, and I don't. There's kind of no formula for what works and what doesn't work.
Right.
I feel like a lot of people probably watched this movie on a VHS or on a DVD back in the day as well, and those effects would stand out less than, now I can watch it a 4K, restored version on the TV, and that stuff is very obvious, Yeah. There's a lot of clarity.
Yeah.
But I don't know, there are very fake films where I'm just locked in with it.
Yeah. And I think that may be why I'm trying to analyze this puzzling situation I find myself in here. I think that I already knew it would be like that. So I was just like enjoying it from a different perspective. I really think I was enjoying it from more like a storybook perspective, not like a great film. Like yeah. It is surprising that like enough people put it on their top 10 to get this thing on the Sight and Sound list. But at the same time, they must have also been viewing it from that perspective. Like it's effective, even though it's not perfect for them.
Yeah. I mean, the guys like Argento were definitely pushing the boundaries. And I think that adds to the appreciation now. It's like you didn't have computers to edit this stuff on and chip away at it and make it look exactly the way you wanted it to look. But you still decided, we're going to try, dropping a body through a stained glass window. We're going to have a dog rip a guy's throat out. We're going to have a girl stab a invisible spirit, and like, it's fun that you went for it that way and that you made it this interesting, this kind of transfixing, despite that stuff being so difficult to actually realize with the resources given.
Mm-hmm.
The most effective moment for me was her falling into the friend, I think it is, falls into the like pile of barbed wire or razor wire.
Yeah.
Because that's just so evocative. We don't really need to see like close-ups of it cutting into skin or something, but just like immediately you bodily react to that, I think. Kind of like Saw movie style or something.
Right. Yeah, I thought that same thing. It's interesting. Saw is what comes to mind now from a scene like that. But you do have a moment where throughout all this, you feel like you're really stuck in this house with the character and with all these people. I mean, even at one point now, I remember remembering the maggots that they find all kind of falling over the place that caused them to have to sleep in the...
Yeah, the image of her kind of looking at the comb and seeing the maggots in the comb, that's a really good image.
Yeah, it's like, oh, geez. And then you'll see them all, and then they all freaking out. And it really felt like you were stuck in that mansion. I mean, in some sense, I was like, we're never going to leave this place. But then she does. She just, at some point, she goes, you know what? I'm going to take a drive out to, I don't know where she was, some building in the regular old city, and meets up with a friend, I guess. And then the friend's like, why don't you talk to my professor guy who knows a lot about witches?
It's very convenient. Her friend was the one that the woman running out of the door at the beginning of the film was talking to, and she says, we know this psychiatrist or whatever.
Yeah.
We've been talking to him about the stuff going on.
Yeah.
And you can go talk to him. I saw someone
have a long conversation with him.
I saw someone on Letterboxd be like, kind of wish that we didn't have that we just stayed in the academy.
I know. I was thinking about that. It's convenient, but I
really love, just the way that it's shot, and when she starts talking to the older professor guy, and like the reverse shot keeps getting like closer and closer, and just like talking to him, all of her fears are being confirmed, and it feels more and more kind of claustrophobic. I mean, that was very effectively shot.
Yeah, exactly. It's well shot, and then it's also just enough information to kind of get you to understand what kind of force that they're up against,
Yeah.
I think it's well done. I think plenty of other movies do the exact same thing, where here's somebody revealing some information that the character is kind of, you can see obviously that the main character is taking the psychiatrist's word, but we know that because we've been seeing other things going on behind the curtain, we know that it's not true, that this person who's died, apparently died decades ago, probably is still alive and causing all of this chaos. we just don't know what that looks like exactly. So with the mystery is a little less mysterious, but still uncertain enough. So when we follow her into the final room there, we don't exactly know what to expect.
Yeah. And it's a good finale. I don't know. I don't know how you describe it, how you talk about it.
Well, I kind of already did the finale. I kind of already did a little bit. Like, well, she's been eating this stuff, I guess, and we don't really know exactly how she's being poisoned or whatever, but she kind of falls into a kind of a deep poisoned state.
She does pour that wine down the sink.
Yeah,
and it really sticks to that sink.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of when you're like, oh shit, yeah, she was kind of being poisoned, and so now she's got the energy to not, she's not going to fall asleep now, and she's going to figure shit out. But her friend, she falls into that trap, and we know she's probably going to die. Actually, after she falls into that barbed wire, what happens to her right after that? She gets stabbed or something?
Because she crawls out of it, and then I really cannot recall.
I know, something falls on her, she gets stabbed or something. She's done. She's done for. And then, so then by the time...
Oh, I think she gets slashed or something. I think we see a close-up of
kind of
the knife going
or
through
something.
Flesh. Yeah.
No blood, though. Just... Just straight through a peach or something.
Right. And the next morning they're like, she left with no warning.
Right. And
Strange.
Then that's when she goes to talk to that friend and that psychiatrist. And then she comes back and she throws away her food. She tosses it in the toilet, the very red toilet. And she dumps her wine down the sink. And she goes on that search for the secret room. And by the time she finds that room, she realizes how to get into the even further secret room by turning that blue iris on the wall. And when she goes in there, it's a bedroom, and it's a bedroom for this woman who had apparently passed away decades ago. Only she didn't, because she's able to survive off of the deaths of other people. And I think it's kind of fun that she has to choose between stabbing her friend, who is now, this kind of dead zombie, coming at her. And you're like, you really feel like an instinctual feeling of like, you should stab her. But if you stabbed her, you'd just be she'd be stabbing the decoy. So instead she turns and stabs the air, which isn't air. It turns out to be a witch, a demon witch. And like I said, then we follow her all the way back out of the building, every room, as it falls.
And the whole thing, and then she shortly gets out, and she's kind of like smiling, almost laughing, as she's leaving. This like relief, the like weight of this kind of coming off of her. And the whole thing is going up in flames, seeing the fire through the window.
Yeah.
Very like Rebecca or one of those films.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And all the witches, all the other, I keep calling them witches. They weren't really witches. They were just dance instructors. They all are
kind of like thralls or something.
Yeah. And they're dying too. Like they have blood coming out of their mouths and stuff after she had attacked the head of the head witch. What was her name? What did they keep calling her? The head...
Helena Marcos.
Yeah. She,
The directress, they call her?
The directress, yeah. Yeah, they were all... I would say that they were all part of her at that point. So when she kills the main lady, they all die too.
It's fun, and we all clap. We all cheer.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
Yeah. It's a cult film, I think, right? It's like it's highly loved by certain group of people.
No, yeah, I think if you feel like an outsider in society, you'll often find these kind of cult films, this kind of alternative cinema, and really identify with it. You know, this, especially a story like this that's about like this evil group that's trying to terrorize and take advantage of the innocents. You know, that's how it can feel when you are kind of an outsider in real life, I think, and you find some kind of relief in these stories. It's cool that like this stuff existed kind of on the outside of mainstream cinema in these decades. And I definitely appreciate other films that you might kind of say was outside of the mainstream, like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or the Japanese movie House, because of that you get something similar from those films, and I really appreciate those films. The giallo stuff, it sits on a line for me where it like sometimes feels like it's a little too much in the exploitation direction. It's a little too kind of misogynistic, and we're really reveling in these images of screaming women and the women getting stabbed and stuff like that. Not to be like moralistic about it or something, but it's that stuff. It can feel shallow to me sometimes. I think this film, I like the characterization of the Susan Bannion girl, the main protagonist in this. Like I think it kind of doesn't get too leering with the violence and stuff for me, but that can definitely be the case with these films. The first Mario Bava film that I saw, or the only one I saw, was Blood and Black Lace, which I think is the one that really set that kind of started the genre, because it was a big success. And it wasn't fun, and it just felt like an excuse to stab women over and over again. Like, there were very thin characters. There was not really much of a plot. It was just like, who's killing everyone? We don't know. You know, this mass killer just one by one taking out each member of the cast. And that was a lot less successful than this film or Bird with the Crystal Plumage for me. But they're not far off from each other. So it's hard to like zero in on what the differences are, why sometimes that feels off-putting and sometimes I'm all right with it. But that's part of why this didn't like bowl me over, or at least the films in this genre sometimes don't bowl me over.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's it's a genre. It's a kind of a specific genre. And so, it's like some people just love horror and like that's their thing. They don't necessarily love movies, right? They just love horror movies. And I feel like that's what this is to a degree. It's like there's probably people who love just this particular genre, or they love horror and they especially love giallo, and that's their thing. And otherwise, you appreciate it and respect the art and what's being done as someone who maybe loves a variety of other things that film can do. But you may not be fully drawn to this. For me, I think weirdly enough, like I'd agree with you in the past, but for some reason, I don't know, I've become a little more intrigued. I may not like other movies in this genre, but I'm intrigued enough by it at this point to kind of dive into a few more just to see.
What did I see that you just watched? Was it Last House on the Left?
Yeah. That was my horror that I wanted to watch before this. That was done kind of around this time, right? 1972.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that with that movie, It's famous for trying to be very difficult for the modern audience. I think the tagline on that movie was like, if you are overwhelmed, just keep telling yourself it's just a movie. Now, like many, many years later, it doesn't really have nearly the same effect that it probably had at the time. And it is very poorly done in many respects. But what was interesting about it is that the director, I think, has said that he wanted to mirror the kind of images he was seeing in Vietnam, and he wanted to mirror them in a movie way, kind of in like your worst horror kind of way. And I do feel like that's what these movies do in some sense, is they're kind of mirroring the blood and violence that humankind has done in the past. We see these images of war. We know about these horrible situations that people have had to endure. And it's the darkness. It's the collective darkness that exists. And so these are ways to kind of release that darkness or process that shadow side of humankind in a more artful way. And I think when it doesn't work is when it's not that interesting, when it doesn't feel as creative as it could be. Like, I'm sure plenty of these giallo movies are lackluster because they're not like really serious or devoted, or just like people who, they just don't quite have that creative sense about them. They're just kind of almost feels like they're mimicking other horror movies. Like, some of these guys started making these movies, and a bunch of these are just going to be mirror images of the other movie they saw. Whereas some of these creatives are like coming from a different angle. They're creating these things out of their own inner depth. And again, that inner depth is, what the fuck was that footage from the Holocaust? What was that footage from Vietnam? That shit was fucked up. I want to process that shit through the big screen. That's what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. And like Suspiria, feels like it's dealing with these anxieties of there are people plotting against me. There are, why does it seem like this, like evil things happen and people don't care or something.
Yeah.
Like it is tapping into kind of anxieties that go back very far. And it's the reasons you have these stories about like witches and stuff, and like putting that in kind of a modern context in a way that feels effective and isn't just the iconography and some shock images.
That's what Last House on the Left was. That was a guy just doing extreme stuff that didn't have any side by side. That movie and this movie are opposites in terms of creativity, I would say. But yeah, Last House on the Left was kind of cute almost at times. But something I didn't know about that movie, though, the family, as a way to kind of get revenge at the end, he brings out a chainsaw. So at the end, you have this that sound of a chainsaw and him kind of chasing a guy. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know, because I don't know what, maybe there's a movie that one could reference before that used chainsaw as a weapon. I don't know what that movie is, though. So I thought that was kind of cool as like a precursor to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But otherwise, yeah, it just sort of feels like violence for the sake of processing violence, not for another means of like being creative and telling an interesting story and anything like that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting when these films kind of find a bigger, more mainstream audience, because you had a lot of kind of local indie horror and more exploitation type stuff happening or being made throughout the 60s, kind of in the aftermath of like Psycho and The Birds being so popular. You had a lot of people trying to make kind of thriller and horror films like that. You had the kind of development of the giallo genre in Italy, but then you also had your exploitation stuff, your Herschel Gordon Lewis films, your Russ Meyer films, But then sometimes they get really big and really popular, and people would kind of borrow from that stuff. I don't know, like Rosemary's Baby. I feel like that was a big hit, but it was another horror film kind of bringing in these occult themes and stuff. And of course, The Exorcist that was like one of the biggest films ever when that comes out.
Yeah.
In what, 70, 73, 74?
74, I think. Yeah.
And that does look a lot like the kind of indie horror stuff from the 60s, but now it has a kind of prestige veneer to it. It's interesting how all that stuff intersects. Carrie, very scary film. I think comes out in 76, I want to say.
Yeah, 76.
I would almost venture to say that Brian De Palma, of all these guys, was doing it the best. And like Carrie, I'd probably would put above either of these Argento films I've seen. Like, I don't know if does he have anything like On the Sight and Sound even? I don't know. I don't think he does.
I don't think he does.
But, people have their different sentimental relationships to different films.
It's true. Yeah, well.
What can you say? We're going to talk about Halloween.
We are going to talk about Halloween, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for a little while, but yeah, we are.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Because we're going to talk about Disclosure Day. We're going to talk about The Odyssey when that comes out as well.
Yeah.
But Halloween, I mean, it's 2 years from now, from Suspiria, and it's going to be the new look of horror for the 80s, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really well shot. Big budget, big camera, widescreen, so terrifying those little kids.
Yeah, all these directors, they feel like the kids in Spirit of the Beehive, like they saw the monster movies as kids and they just never got over them.
Yeah.
They're like, I want to make movies where fucked up stuff happens.
That's what they did.
Because those movies scared the hell out of me when I was a kid.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, it's like in the 70s, that's what they were doing. And it definitely feels like it's all very masculine based, like you said about giallo. Yeah. It's all just like a bunch of guys. It's either the women screaming or the guys being like in fucked up situations and trying to figure out their stuff. But, it was one big experiment after another, and it was informative and inspirational, and you can go back and be like, wow, that didn't work. That kind of worked, and then here is an example of where they really got it. And maybe with Halloween, Carpenter succeeds. We'll find out. We'll find out.
Stay tuned to this feed for that down the line. But first, should we talk about those 1977 albums?
Let's do it. I'm going to start with the soundtrack to listen to, not necessarily listen to, but to just to highlight was Suspiria's soundtrack by an artist named Goblin. This is a fantastic horror soundtrack that really sounds as disorienting and dreamy and strange as the movie Witches.
Yeah, this was fun listening to this. There were points, I don't know, I almost came out of the film and I was just like rocking along to the music.
Yeah, exactly. It just starts right back up, when they're going back into some, she's walking back towards him. Hypnotic.
Either it's the synths or it's the guitars, but like the films at this time, having just watched the Exorcist in full for the first time too.
Yeah.
You listen to those do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do like sounds, and you're like, yeah, it is really eerie. And it makes sense that everyone kind of copied that stuff. And yeah, this goblin stuff too. It is effective. It is unsettling.
Speaking of unsettling, though, I'm going to now cut to the challenging album to listen to. From this year, Suicide, their self-titled album.
Let's hear it for Frankie.
Which I was watching another movie on our list by Fassbender, The Year with 13 Moons. Frankie Teardrop, which is kind of the most terrifying song on the record, appears in the background of that movie.
Frankie's dead.
Yeah, but did you give us one a try?
Yes. It's crazy to hear this from 77.
Insane.
Because it sounds like the kind of, the 90s, like 9 Inch Nails type stuff that's going to come. That kind of like industrial rock and stuff. Like, what are they using like a drum machine on this?
I think they probably are. Yeah.
It's pretty simple and lo-fi, but it's just so creative. Like they found that sound and they were like, yeah, this works. Like, this is what we're sticking with, on each track of this thing. No, another movie that this album shows up in is the Springsteen movie starring Jeremy Allen White from last year. Because apparently this album was pretty influential on Springsteen's Nebraska album. And you can kind of hear the similarities, the reverb, vocal effects, but there's like a scene where he's listening to this and he's really in a bad mental state and he's gonna go drive his car really fast down the road and stuff. And I was like, damn, what is this? What is this stuff? That was my first introduction to Suicide.
Wow. That's a bizarre introduction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense, though. Yeah, this record is absolutely crazy. I think gotta be really influential, and yet it's extremely dark and disturbing. But it's fascinating album.
I feel like we've said about some of the other albums from the previous years, and reminder, you can go listen to, let's talk about albums from each year. It's usually the first episode for that year. Some other album we said, like, no, that this is music that if you hear your kid listening to this as a parent at that time, you're like, no, we're throwing this record out. We're not 100%. Listening to this. Like, this is frightening stuff if you're a 70s parent.
It's frightening today. If the kid was listening to it today, the parent would be like, "What? You okay?" I think most people would probably be like, "What is that?" But it works for some people. It makes sense.
It's like these films. It explores that kind of fascination we have with the morbid stuff, the evil, all of that.
Yeah. The darkness, which kind of sort of reminds me of what I think is the best album of 77, Television's Marquee Moon. Who didn't do too much. I think they only made like one other album after this, but this was a hugely influential album here. This is really your first like punk kind of sound you're gonna hear. It doesn't sound like anything else either at the same time. It's a unique album that I love. I love the sound of it, the energy of it. Had you heard of Television or this album before?
Yeah, only in the last couple of years I've gotten introduced to this album. I feel like some songs on here are better than others, but I do, in general, really like their sound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a punk. We're really getting into the punk era, aren't we?
Well, we are, because the second best, I think, is Pink Flag by Wire. This is their first record. There's a lot of songs on it. Though it doesn't have a very long runtime, it's a lot of quick, fiery, energetic songs. And there's a lot of sarcasm on this thing. It's kind of quirky at times, but it's noisy and energetic, and it's telling you punk is here. We're in the 70s now. We moved through the 60s. Early 70s still sort of feels like the 60s sometimes, but now we're in 77, so we've got Suicide, we've got Television, we've got The Wire.
There's great danger.
We're in the 70s.
Yeah, I read these were like art school guys in Wire. So they're taking this punk stuff and they're injecting a little bit of melodic stuff here and there. It feels like I'm totally new to them, and I don't know much about the inner politics of the punk scene. I don't know if that scene is like they were astro-turfing on these other bands scene, but I did really enjoy this album. I think that balance they strike between the like simple punk sound and adding those little quirky things was really effective, and yeah, it's definitely stands the test of time, I think. Yeah,
I think it's like one of the best punk albums, and for being one of the first two makes it a highlight for me, because you're going to have so many great punk albums come after this one and after this year, but 77 is really the introduction to punk albums, though people were making stuff. It's always the case that these are artists and musicians were making things. They just weren't being produced yet. So 77 is really the first year that it's produced on a wider scale, all these guys. But then switching gears to a very easy listen and a totally different scene that's been doing its thing in Jamaica and other countries. The Congos, their only record, really, The Heart of the Congos.
Every morning the black sunrise, every morning the black sunrise, it shines out of the heart of the coconut. It shines.
I put reggae on here to kind of throw you off a little bit, but I don't know. I think reggae has. I think it's. And we talked about this the first time I put a reggae album on the list. It's underappreciated, I think, or maybe it's becoming more appreciated as time goes on. But this one, I love. I love how this sounds like a kind of lo-fi chill wave, kind of like it's like. This reggae sounds like it comes out of a cassette from a passing car. It's like you're like, whoever's in that car is literally having the time of their lives, because it's just such a relaxing, lovely album to put on.
No, this is kind of like what I think of when I think of reggae, this sound.
Yeah.
It feels like it envelops you, like you're already surrounded by weed smoke as soon as you turn this on.
It's such a unique sound. No other reggae album really sounds quite like this one. One of the members is Lee Scratch Perry, who was like a very famous reggae performer. He's in another
Is he the Super Ape guy?
He's the guy he's in the Upsetters, the Super Ape.
Upsetters,
yeah. So I don't know what he was doing to create this sound, but it's freaking great. And I have a running joke with my wife where I'll put that first song on sometimes in the middle of nowhere, and it gets her laughing all the time, because she used to say she hated reggae or just didn't quite get it, and So I would play this record all the time until she loved it. So that's the power of this album.
I don't know. I was trying to come up with some joke about marital bliss.
Yeah.
Keep playing your reggae until they love it.
Just I try to find the most awkward moment or the most like non-obvious moment to do it too. So it's fun times in the household. And then we move on to the last record here, the lesser known record, Maison Rose, by Emmanuel Perrinin. Fun little, who did I say it sounded like?
Well, I said Joanna. Oh, you put Vashti Bunyan. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, Vashti Bunyan is like a more well-known folky European from around the same time, a little bit. And then you said Joanna Newsom, which is another good, similar artist. This is just a lovely, kind of psychedelic folk, ethereal sounding record. That's really just you don't know what they're saying unless you look at the lyrics, of course, because it's in French, but it's beautiful. The sound of it is beautiful, so you don't need to know what they're saying.
Yeah. It'll go from very light and folky to downbeat, rock sound or something. In the second half, there's some interesting drum parts that come in. I enjoyed listening to this one.
Yeah. The album cover is cute. Hand-drawn cover, which I'm always a fan of. But yeah, so that's 77. We're moving in. We keep progressing. We've got scary movies. We got weird-ass movies. We got weird music. That's the name of the game now. Once you get past 1971, 1972, it's like you don't know what you're going to expect anymore. Yeah.
All the rules are gone.
The rules are gone, and also you get just like with the giallo. Like before, it was like just some genres. There was like different genres. Now there's like subgenres and movements and like sub movements. If you're going chronologically and you're moving through time, like you're going to end up with more and more paths you could go down, scenes within scenes.
I was gonna look at if there are any albums from 77 that made me want to be like, why didn't you include this? But it's really, music is branching out so many different directions now that just picking 5 of them to talk about leaves so many things out.
Well, I did reconsider choosing that Wire album. Because it was like too punk.
I'll remind you, it is the year of Fleetwood Mac's Rumors.
No, listen. If I went through what my actual top, like Marquee Moon is for sure, I think that's my favorite. But if I moved through and I was like really honest, I'd have to choose probably one of David Bowie's again, because I'm a fan. And then I would be kind of like torn between Pink Floyd's Animals that they make this year and Fleetwood Mac. I'd be torn between those two, I think. Because, of course, Fleetwood Mac is great, but Fleetwood Mac to me is easy. That's an easy pick. I didn't want to do a really easy pick. So then I was like, well, what if I did like Kraftwerk's album that they did that year? Trans-Europa Express. But I've already done a lot of like electronic stuff. So I was like, I'll just go with the punk. It's the year of punk. Just gonna go with it.
I like it. That's the beauty of list making right there,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right, folks. Well, next week, forget about punk. We're talking about mainstream cinema. We're talking about Steven Spielberg and Disclosure Day, the new film. Let's talk about it. What more is there to say? I don't know. Will it be aliens? Will there be something else? I don't know what that film's about. We'll talk about it. In the meantime, go to unauthorizedpod.com.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Those CGI animals. I'm scared. I'm scared of it being good. Like, what are we doing with those CGI animals? Oh
I don't know. Starting to hear some good things from the advanced reviews, so I'm staying optimistic.
Spielberg thinks that there are. He's like trying to make this to help us to want. He's trying to make this because he wants us to believe there's aliens even more so than we already. Okay. Some of us already do. Like, it's what he said. He's said that. Like, I don't know. Maybe it'll be fine. I don't know. I'm worried it's just gonna be like a tearing it apart.
That's all. Look, we're gonna plant our flag on one side or another, and we're gonna browbeat everyone who disagrees with us, because that's the name of the game.
Okay,
it's our podcast.
Okay. I feel better.
You all can shut up and sit down.
Yeah, cut that in right before, and then we actually loved it. Actually, guys, this is a masterpiece. This is a masterpiece.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, we'll keep that disclosed. No, that doesn't work. All right. Time to end this thing.
Unauthorizedpod.com. See us on Letterboxd. There's a bunch of links in the description. Click on them, and we'll talk to you next time.
Peace. Witches.